Everyone, what's up? I'm Chaitanya. You're watching Chai with Chaitanya. This is a place where I talk about books, movies, and fandom. And today I'm here to tell you guys about my new favorite book. And I'm so happy that the year has just started. Wishing you all a very happy new year. I hope all of you are safe, healthy, and amazing. And the year has just started, and I have finally already found my first book, which is definitely going to be like an all-time favorite, and that is of course Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is my second Taylor Jenkins Reid's novel. The first one was Malibu Rising, which I loved just as much as I loved this. In fact, I if anybody asked me which one I loved more, I would probably very confused. So if you have read that book or if you have not, and if you're interested in my review and my thoughts of why I felt it's as amazing as I say it is, then all you have to do is to click on the link above or down in the description box below, and it would lead you to that video and you can enjoy. Now coming to this one, but before we go ahead, I hope all of you have subscribed to my channel. If you have not, then the button would be right down below. Please do that and support my channel, and if you've done that, then let's go. First of all, let's go ahead and talk about the story and the plot. And in terms of that, I would not be going in depth. I would just give you very brief overview of what you should be knowing before heading into this, because I feel that you truly need to read this book in order to understand, appreciate, and see what beauty that this is. So all that you need to know is that we follow Daisy Jones, who is an independent artist, and the Six, which is a band of six members, of course, as the name suggests. And both of these parties are respectively trying to make music. They have something out. They are still working on something, and they are famous, but they're not like popular. Like they're just famous in their respective small circles, and they're trying to make it to the top until both of these parties come together. They become one band, and then they work together, and they become the overnight sensation. Everybody in the USA is talking about them, and they are extremely popular, and everybody loves them, and they are at the pinnacle of success until one day it just finally all breaks, and the band, like every single band member, kind of just exits the band on the same day and decide that they don't want to be a part of this band. So it kind of tracks the journey of the band, the life of these characters as and when they became a part of the band, how they became a part of the band, what led to them becoming as successful as they were, and then what happened once they became as successful as they were, and then what led to the everybody quitting from the band, and then of course the aftermaths as well. So it's like a whole journey that you take. You kind of see at least a decade, if not more. I'm forgetting the timeline, but at least you see a decade of them working and just being together. So that's more or less in a nutshell about this book. Next thing that you also need to know is that this book is written in a form of an interview. So this is essentially an oral history of this band, and which is why the format of the book looks a little different than what at least I was used to. It looks like a script. As you can see, you have names of the characters, and then what they say or what they're thinking is written beside it. So you constantly keep shifting perspectives, like each paragraph is by a different character, and that really took me by surprise, because a, I've never read books like this, as I've said before, and two, it took me a while to actually get familiar with this kind of structuring, which is why initially I was not really enjoying this book. For the first 50-60 pages, I did had certain opinions of certain characters, and because there was so many of them, it really was a little difficult to get into the book, to get into this world, to really connect with these characters and just see them for the people that they are. So if you're somebody like me, you need to give the book a little bit of time. If you are not enjoying it initially because of how it's written, I would suggest that read at least 100 pages or at least 150 pages, and then see if you really want to stop. And I came very close to stopping at around the 40 or the 50 page mark, but I just kept going, and I don't even remember now when exactly that it stopped bothering me. But I do remember that when the book ended, I was amazed, I was blown away, and I really appreciated and loved the way that this is written. I truly think that if it was written in a format of a novel, like the way it's normally written, I don't think this story would have worked the way it actually does. Like, it wouldn't have left that kind of impact that it really does at the end of it. So that is something that you guys should definitely keep in mind. Another piece of crucial information, crucial or not so crucial, I don't know, depending on whether you like listening to audiobooks or not. But if you're somebody who loves listening to the audiobooks or just enjoys it, then you can totally check out the audiobook version for this book. I have heard that it's a full cast, which means that every single character is voiced by a different voice narrator or an actor. So it makes it very lively, it makes it very real, it makes it very believable, and actually like as if you're listening to a podcast where different people are just sitting and talking, like telling their parts and saying what they have to say. So that might be very interesting. I am planning to get the audiobook just because I love this, like the reading of this book so much, so I have to check it out. So if you're somebody who's into it, you can also check that out. Now, going ahead and talking about why I enjoyed this book so much and why I was instantly addicted to it midway. And I can see a couple of reasons, so I will go one by one. The characters. I think that Taylor Jenkins Reid has a way with writing very nuanced and deeply flawed yet beautiful characters, and much like Malibu Rising, this book has also done the same. I mean, she wrote Malibu Rising later, so she did it here first. And having read Malibu Rising first, I think that this book has more flawed characters, like more gray characters than Malibu Rising. The thing that I really enjoyed is that how unlikable most of these characters were, especially the two main leads, which is Billy, who's kind of the lead of the band, the Six, and Daisy. Both of these people are very, very self centered, kind of narcissistic, stubborn, and have this innate ability to, just do as in what it pleases to them. And then they, kind of are put in position with other people, and you get to see that how, because of their personality, what happens to other people and how they react. And then you see when these two very similar kind of people, when they come into the room, and then you see like this whole vibe completely changing, because in a way Billy and Daisy are very similar to each other, and yet they are complete and stark opposites of one another. So it's this great paradox which Taylor Jenkins Reid has created in her characters, and in the way that it represents each other, like they're kind of the mirrors to one another. And that is the beauty of it. Like, I cannot go into the details and tell you instances about how this happens, because again, that would spoil the book for you. But I will tell you that I really did not like most of the characters in this book when I first met them, but by the end of it, I really knew why they were the way they were, like the choices that they made, or what was the reason behind them reacting in a certain way. And once you get to the point, the book just starts making so much more sense. It just adds that another layer of depth, and just that nuance which you want from a good book, like from a good story, that just kicks in. And I think that this book is deeply emotional. It's very vulnerable. All of these characters are essentially very vulnerable people, and it really shows in the way they behave, they talk, they just make their choices, and they just go on living about their lives. The second thing that I want to point out is the writing, and of course, you cannot go on writing great characters with engaging plotline without not talking about the writing in itself. And I find Taylor Jenkins Reid's writing style to be extremely engaging, very direct, very conversational, very welcoming, and it has that touch of sensationalism, and yet it is very philosophical. Like, she does this where she's talking about adultery, and she's talking about drugs and sex, and then she'll put in these lines where which is like very self-reflecting, and it's very introspective in nature, and you're just kind of off balance, because on one side you're reading about things which aren't really considered moral, and then suddenly you're questioning yourself because of what is being said. And that's like again a paradox that she does, which I really enjoyed specifically in this book. I enjoyed it in Malibu Rising as well, but this one it was just so much more clearer and so much more like highlighted in a way, if I could say. Now, coming to the next point, which is to do with music. And again, I'm one of those people who is just not into music in a way where, I have like a favorite band, or I follow a particular band very obsessively, or, I don't even have a playlist for that matter, as a fact. And I'm not even kidding. Like, I genuinely listen to songs whatever, whenever I feel, and I just go up on YouTube and I search that song, I listen to it, and then maybe I'll just listen to it 10 times, maybe in one day, maybe over a week, and then I'll just forget about it until suddenly I just remember about it again. And that's just how songs are for me. It's not to say that I'm not moved by songs, I don't like listening to songs, but unlike other people, music hasn't really been very big part of who I am. Like, yeah, I mean, that's just how I have seen it, which is why I've never been into, somebody who's known a lot about music in general, which is why I was very apprehensive of picking this book up. I always knew about it, but I just never, like, bought it because I thought that this book isn't really for me. And I was so wrong. I was so wrong, because even though this book mostly deals about a rock band in the 70s and the 80s, and for most part I have no clue what happened in the 70s and 80s, like in the actual real world. I don't know what kinds of band existed back in those days, and I have no interest in finding it out. But when I went into this book, I was really skeptical of whether I will like it or not. But believe me, you do not really need to know anything about music in order to enjoy this book. And if you, of course, if you know music, if you're into bands and all of those things which are a part of this book very much, then you would just enjoy it in a more deeper and a more meaningful way than what I did, or what people like me would. Really want to talk more about the romance and about a lot of other things that were in this book, but I cannot, because again those would be spoilers. So I would probably make a spoilery discussion very soon, but I would leave it with this, that I went into this book expecting something very different, and it ended up being something really different, and different in a good way, of course. And I was pleasantly surprised how much I enjoyed it. It was like going on an adventure with this set of people who I just did not know, like strangers, and most of them I did not even like. But by the end of it, I was crying and just smiling and just wanted to spend more time with these characters that Taylor Jenkins Reid has created. And I really started caring for them in a very deep and a very sensitive manner, where I really hope that all of them are doing well. I mean, of course, she did give us an epilogue section, but I just wish and hope that there was more. But of course, every good story has to end, and much like that, Daisy Jones and the Six is a perfect story. It actually is a perfect summer book, even though I read it in the winters. That's it, more or less. I ended up giving this book a 5 on 5 stars. Even this is more like a 4.75 for me, like minus 2.5 for something like the initial, disconnect, and just not being able to get into all of these characters and not being able to spend enough time with them. But I finally, when I was, writing my Goodreads review, I realized that, this is just one of those books which gave me such an adventure, such a roller coaster worth of emotions right from the start to the end, that it deserves the 5 stars, if not nothing else. If you are planning to read this, I would suggest that the best time is summer. It also says the must-read book of the summer, and I would totally agree. Even though I read it in the winters, it doesn't really make a difference, but it has that whole summer vibe going for it. So if you're looking for a perfect read, then this should definitely be it. Yes, and if any one of you have read this and if you would love to talk about it, I would really love to know your opinions down in the comment section below. Do let me know who's your favorite character. If you want to ask me, then that's definitely Camilla. I think she was just fabulous, and I will talk more about her in my next spoilery discussion for this book. So until then, I hope all of you are doing good, and bye.